My name is Erica Brown, and today I'm going to explain how my critical thinking skills have grown throughout this class. Well, how many times have you heard something and immediately assumed it was true? Well, I'm one of those people. I thought critical thinking simply meant having an opinion, defending it, and being able to explain why I believe something. And if I thought something was right, I assumed that was enough. I didn't spend much time questioning where information came from or examining evidence or even considering viewpoints that were different from my own. I rely on my personal experiences, emotions, and what other people told me when making decisions. Before even taking this class, I did more than often, I realized. As a CNA that I am, I take care of the elderly. I remember hearing coworkers describe certain patients as difficult or uncooperative without asking questions or gathering information. I accepted that judgment, and later, after spending time with those patients myself, I learned that they were dealing with pain, anxiety, and fear. And that experience made me realize how easy it is to form conclusions based on limited information. So at this time, I thought I was making a reasonable judgment, but I was actually reacting instead of thinking critically. Looking back, I can see that I often accepted claims without evidence and relied on assumptions and failed to consider other perspectives. In my everyday life, it meant forming opinions quickly based on social media, the news, like watching TV, or conversations on Twitter, Facebook, or even with my friends and family. I believe that thinking critically, but in reality, if you get what I'm saying, I often reacted to information rather than analyzing it. After this course, my understanding of critical thinking is completely different. And now I see critical thinking as a process of carefully evaluating claims, evidence, and reason before even reaching a conclusion. So I have learned that being a critical thinker does not mean proving that I am right. It means being willing to ask questions, look for evidence, and recognize weaknesses in my argument, and remain open to change when new information is presented. So going further into this course, that began to change from live sessions, being in those breakout groups, because me personally, jumping up in the queue, I get very nervous, but being in those breakout rooms and it opened you up to talk about things I should have talked about when I got up in the queue. But I'm glad that I had great classmates to, talk about these things with. Some other things was the readings we did, those podcasts. I love those podcasts, and those application assignments. I really love those. They challenged me to slow down, ask questions, and think more carefully before even reaching conclusions. And as a result, I have become more thoughtful, fair-minded, and open-minded thinker in school, at work, and in my everyday life, especially with my kids. I have two boys. My argument today is that I have grown as a critical thinker because I have developed three important skills. One would be understanding burden of proof, evaluating evidence, and recognizing logical fallacies. These were personal three of my tools that have changed how I communicate with others, as far as my coworkers, my kids' schools, doctors, patients. So the first skill that changed my thinking taught me to not accept claims without proof. And burden of proof was one of them. And if someone makes a claim, they should be able to support it with evidence, right? Instead of simply accepting statements as true, a critical thinker asks, let's see, how do we know that this is true. So I learned that the concept, I learned this concept in class and through my readings and podcasts, which focus on presumptions and burden of proof. I also practice this application, well, not application, but this concept through my assignments on claim types and burden of proof. Before learning this concept, I would have known what it was before, just learning about it. I often accept the claims at face value. Like, example, at work, if someone told me a patient was being difficult, I might have believed them immediately. After learning about burden of proof, I began asking myself, what evidence is actually supporting this claim, if you think about it? Was the patient in pain? Were they confused? Were they scared? Sometimes there was much more happening than what appeared on the surface. So this concept, to me, became more compassionate because it taught me not to rush to judgment. Instead of accepting conclusions made by others. I learned to gather information for myself. That change has improved my interactions with patients and staff. And it also helped me provide better care, which I always provide better care to my patients. Well, and another thing, like questioning claims was my very first important step. But I also need to learn how to evaluate the evidence behind those claims. So another skill I learned that changed my critical thinking throughout this course was evaluating that evidence. This second skill I developed was learning how to evaluate evidence. In my own words, evaluating evidence means like deciding whether information is trustworthy, relevant, reliable, and current enough to support conclusions. I learned this through class, through reading, through the breakout sessions, and even the podcast, and even doing my own research, when going to do these assignments that you all gave us. I practice skill during work, at home, even in school. This concept has had a major impact on me as a healthcare worker. Every day, patient care depends on accurate information. Because this course, I sometimes focus on what people said rather than explaining the quality of information itself. Now I ask questions such as, is this information reliable? Is it based on direct observation? Is it current? For example, if a patient reports a symptom, I now focus on documenting specific observations and communicating with my upper person, like my RN, my LPN, or administrative about the situation. I have learned that these good decisions require good evidence, and this skill has made me more confident in my role because I know the importance of collecting accurate information before reaching conclusions. And my final skill that helped me with my critical thinking is recognizing logical facilities. The third skill I have developed was learning how to recognize logical facilities. A logical facility, I don't know if I'm saying it right, I'm sorry, is an error in reasoning that weakens the argument, even if the argument sounds persuasive. I also learned that practicing identifying these and through my application assignment number 7, that stood out to me. It was kind of hasty generalization. This happens when someone takes a small amount of information and uses it to make a broad conclusion. So, in reality, before this course, I sometimes accepted those generalizations without thinking much about them. And for example, if someone might say that all patients from a certain unit are difficult, or that all employees in a certain department behave a certain way, after learning about facilities, I realized how unfair and inaccurate those conclusions can be. Now, I try to evaluate each situation individually instead of making my own assumptions. I look at the facts and consider the alternative explanations. This has helped me become more patient, understanding, and open minded when interacting with others. So, looking back, I can clearly see how much my thinking was changed, and throughout this course, it really, really helped me to understand burden of proof, evaluate evidence, and recognize those logical facilities. More importantly, I learned to apply all those skills in my real situations. And these skills matter because critical thinking affects real people. And as a CNA and a future healthcare administrator, I will be responsible for making decisions that impact patients, families, and even staff. So having good critical thinking skills helps me to ensure those decisions are fair, informed, and supportive by evidence. So I challenge myself every day to continue practicing one simple habit after class ends. I ask questions. I always look for evidence, and I always be willing to listen to other people's viewpoints instead of just going based off of mine. So I just want to say thank you for helping me throughout this course to become a better critical thinker, and I will do my best to keep going and using these skills to further better myself. Thank you.